Klay Thompson is officially heading to South Beach, giving the Miami Heat another major veteran presence for their championship push. After reaching a buyout agreement with the Dallas Mavericks, the four-time champion is expected to sign a 2-year deal worth nearly $13 million with Miami. The move comes after the Heat added Giannis Antetokounmpo and several experienced players to reshape the roster.
Klay Thompson is officially a member of the Miami Heat, and this is much bigger than simply another veteran signing. Miami has just added one of the greatest shooters and most accomplished champions of his generation to a roster that already made a massive statement by acquiring Giannis Antetokounmpo, and suddenly the Heat look like a completely different team heading into the 2-0, 2-6, 2-7 season. Thompson cleared waivers after reaching a buyout with the Dallas Mavericks and signed a 2-year deal with Miami worth approximately $11.5 million, with the second season giving him a player option. And honestly, this might be one of the smartest moves Miami could have made. Not because Klay is still the player he was during Golden State's championship dynasty, because he's not, but because the version of Klay that exists today may fit Miami's new roster almost perfectly. Think about the situation. Miami has Giannis Antetokounmpo, one of the most dominant players in basketball, Bam Adebayo, one of the league's most versatile big men, and now Klay Thompson, a player who can force defenses to pay for every unnecessary double team. That combination immediately creates a problem for opposing defenses. If you collapse on Giannis, Klay can punish you from the perimeter. If you stay attached to Klay, Giannis has more room to attack the paint. If you try to load up on both of them, Bam Adebayo becomes another major problem in the middle. This is exactly why the Heat wanted Thompson. The NBA reported that Miami specifically targeted shooting to surround Giannis and Bam, and that makes the move much easier to understand. Thompson doesn't need to dominate the ball in Miami. In fact, that's probably the best thing about this entire situation. He doesn't need to average 20 points. He doesn't need to create offense every possession. He doesn't need to pretend he's still the 2016 version of Klay Thompson. He simply needs to do what he does best. Move without the ball, space the floor, knock down open threes, make defenses uncomfortable, and deliver when the opportunity comes. And that could make him significantly more valuable in Miami than he was in Dallas. Last season with the Mavericks, Thompson averaged 11.7 points per game and shot 38.3% from three. Those numbers are clearly below the standard he established during his prime, but there's an important detail that should not be ignored. He still made 202 three-pointers and remained one of the most dangerous catch-and-shoot threats in the league. That's what Miami is buying. They're not paying for the old Klay. They're paying for shooting, experience, spacing, and championship DNA. And the financial commitment makes the move even more interesting. A 2-year deal worth roughly $11.5 million is a relatively modest investment for a player with Thompson's resume. Miami isn't betting its entire future on him. It's adding a potentially elite complementary piece to a roster that already has a superstar. That's the type of risk I would take every time if I'm trying to win a championship. But let's talk about the biggest question surrounding this move. Can Klay still make a meaningful difference at 36 years old? Because that's where the excitement has to meet reality. Thompson has already gone through major injuries, and his athleticism is obviously not what it was during his Warriors' prime. His defensive role has changed. His ability to create separation has declined, and there were nights in Dallas when his limitations became impossible to ignore. But Miami doesn't need him to be an all-NBA player. They need him to be a weapon. That's a completely different assignment. And if Erik Spoelstra can put Thompson in the right situations, I think there's a legitimate chance we see a version of Klay that looks much more comfortable than the one we saw in Dallas. Miami has one of the best coaching environments in basketball, and Spoelstra understands how to maximize role players around stars. More importantly, the Heat now have Giannis. That changes everything. Giannis creates an extraordinary amount of defensive attention simply by attacking the rim. Opposing teams have to build their entire defensive strategy around stopping him. You cannot casually leave shooters open when Giannis is driving downhill. And that could be exactly what Klay needs. Imagine Giannis attacking the paint, drawing two defenders, and kicking the ball out to Thompson in the corner. That's not complicated basketball. It's simple, efficient basketball. But simple doesn't mean easy to stop. And if Klay starts knocking down shots at a high percentage, teams will have to make a choice. Give Giannis more space or give Klay open threes. That is the type of dilemma Miami wants to create. And then there is Bam Adebayo. Bam adds another dimension because he can operate as a screener, passer, defender, and interior threat. He can help facilitate actions that free Thompson around screens. He can also punish smaller lineups if teams try to prioritize perimeter shooting. Suddenly, Miami has multiple ways to attack you. That's why I think the Klay signing is more important than the raw statistics suggest. It's not about adding another scorer. It's about changing the geometry of the entire offense. And there's another reason this move feels different. Klay himself appears to understand exactly what he's walking into. After joining Miami, Thompson described the upcoming season as something of a redemption opportunity, saying he wants to prove he can still make an impact on winning and do it consistently. That statement tells you everything. This isn't simply a veteran collecting another contract. Klay knows the last 2 years have changed the way people talk about him. His departure from Golden State was emotional. His time in Dallas didn't develop the way either side expected. Now he's walking into Miami with something to prove. And I think that makes him dangerous. Players who have already won 4 championships don't necessarily need motivation. But players who feel like the league has started questioning whether they're still capable of contributing at a high level can become extremely motivated. Klay doesn't need to prove he was great. Everybody knows that. What he wants to prove is that he can still matter. And Miami gives him the perfect stage to do it. The Heat are no longer just a tough, defensive-minded team trying to grind out games. They have completely changed the ceiling of the roster by acquiring Giannis. Miami reportedly sent Tyler Hero, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Kel'el Ware, and Kasparas Jakučionis to Milwaukee as part of the deal for Giannis, while also adding Bobby Portis. They also added Tim Hardaway Jr., another dangerous perimeter shooter. So when you look at the roster, the strategy becomes obvious. Surround Giannis with shooting and experienced players who can make defenses pay. Klay fits directly into that plan. And that is why I believe the Heat could be one of the most dangerous teams in the Eastern Conference if everything goes right. But let's slow down for a second, because there is a major difference between being dangerous and being a championship favorite. Miami still has questions. Giannis has to stay healthy. Bam has to remain a consistent two-way force. The supporting cast has to develop chemistry. And Klay has to accept a role that may be smaller than what he once had in Golden State. If he starts forcing shots or trying to recreate his old offensive responsibilities, this could become complicated. But if he embraces his role, Miami becomes much more difficult to defend. That's the key. Klay's success in Miami will depend less on how many shots he gets and more on the quality of those shots. If he is taking open threes created by Giannis and Bam, that's a great situation. If he's being asked to manufacture offense against elite defenders, that's a completely different story. And I don't think Miami needs to put him in that position. The Heat can protect him offensively by giving him a defined job. Run him off screens. Let him relocate around Giannis drives. Use him as a decoy. Force defenders to chase him. Even when Thompson doesn't touch the ball, his presence matters because defenders cannot completely ignore him. That is the hidden value of an elite shooter. And Klay still has that reputation. He's currently 4th on the NBA's all-time three-point list with 2,899 made threes, and he enters the season just 74 behind Ray Allen for 3rd place. Think about that for a moment. Even after the injuries and the decline, Klay is still within striking distance of one of the most iconic shooting records in NBA history. That's not just a historical achievement. It's proof that his shooting ability remains special. And now he's going to have Giannis creating opportunities for him. That could be a dangerous combination. But the Eastern Conference isn't going to make this easy. Boston remains a serious threat. New York remains a major contender. Cleveland is still dangerous. Orlando has young talent. And other teams will be looking at Miami and wondering whether the Heat have enough depth to survive a long playoff run. That's why the next season is going to be so fascinating. Miami isn't trying to win 45 games and sneak into the playoffs. The entire direction of the franchise has changed. When you acquire Giannis and then add Klay Thompson, you're telling the league that the objective is the championship. And that means the standard for Klay changes too. If Miami loses in the first round, people will question the roster. If they lose in the second round, the conversation gets louder. If they reach the conference finals, the move starts looking like a success. And if Klay is hitting huge shots in the finals, suddenly the entire narrative around his career changes. That's the opportunity in front of him. He doesn't need to return to being a superstar. He needs to become the veteran sniper who shows up when the pressure is highest. We've already seen him do that. That's what makes this such an intriguing gamble. Miami isn't asking Klay to become something he's never been. They're asking him to return to something he knows extremely well, winning basketball. And the Heat culture could be exactly what he needs. Pat Riley called Thompson one of the most iconic players to ever suit up in the NBA and emphasized that his championship experience and all-around game could fit Miami's plans. Those comments matter because Riley isn't bringing Klay in simply to sell tickets. He's bringing him in because Miami believes his experience can help a team that suddenly has championship expectations. There's also an interesting connection to the past. Klay is now chasing a 5th championship, and Miami has a long history with elite shooters, including Ray Allen, the player currently ahead of him on the all-time three-point list. Now Klay gets the opportunity to potentially pass Allen while wearing a Heat uniform. That would be a pretty remarkable chapter in his career. But the bigger story is not the record. It's whether Klay can rediscover his consistency. If he shoots around his career standard from 3 and gets clean looks, Miami becomes significantly more dangerous. If he struggles to stay on the floor or becomes a defensive liability, Spoelstra will have to adjust. That's the reality of NBA basketball. Reputation gets you onto the roster. Performance determines your playoff minutes. And I expect Miami to be ruthless about that. If Klay is playing well, he'll be on the floor. If he's not, Spoelstra won't hesitate to change the rotation. That's exactly how it should be. Because the Heat aren't building a museum for Klay Thompson's career. They're building a championship team. And Klay seems to understand that. This isn't Golden State. This isn't Dallas. This is a completely new chapter. And maybe that's exactly what he needed. In Dallas, the situation became complicated by the departure of Luka Doncic and the direction of the franchise. Thompson arrived expecting to play alongside Luka and Kyrie Irving, but the project never developed the way it was supposed to. Eventually, Dallas bought out the final year of his contract, allowing him to pursue a better opportunity. Miami is that opportunity. And now the pressure is different. There is no excuse about rebuilding. There is no uncertainty about the team's direction. The Heat want to compete, and Klay knows exactly what he's signing up for. So here's my prediction. Don't expect Klay Thompson to suddenly average 20-plus points in Miami. That's not the point. I expect his impact to show up in efficiency, spacing, big shots, and playoff moments. If he can stay healthy and consistently knock down open threes, I think this signing could end up being one of the most important supporting moves of the entire offseason. Because Giannis doesn't need another player who wants the ball all the time. He needs players who make his life easier. Klay Thompson can do that.
I think Klay Thompson joining Miami is a very interesting move because he brings something that cannot simply be measured by regular season statistics. He is a 4-time champion who understands what it takes to perform under pressure. After his time in Dallas, Miami could give him a new environment and another opportunity to compete for a championship. The addition of Klay becomes even more important because Miami has already added Giannis Antetokounmpo. Having Giannis as the centerpiece while surrounding him with experienced veterans could create a very different team from what Miami has had recently. Klay's shooting and championship experience could complement Giannis extremely well. The playoff experience on this roster also stands out to me. Giannis, Klay, Bobby Portis, and Tim Hardaway Jr. have combined for 350 playoff games, while everyone else on the roster has only 155. That kind of experience can matter when games become tighter and younger players start feeling the pressure. For Klay, this could also be an important opportunity to rebuild his momentum. He does not necessarily need to be the player who carries the offense anymore. With Giannis leading the team, Thompson can focus on what he does best and use his experience to contribute without having to carry the same burden. I also like the fact that Miami is adding proven veterans instead of relying entirely on young players around Giannis. Championship teams need players who understand how to handle playoff pressure. and Klay has lived through some of the biggest moments in NBA history. That experience could become extremely valuable once the postseason arrives.